Hey everyone,
Hey.
welcome. Yay to Deux, Wytches. It is Friday, December 27th in the United States, but over there in France, it is Saturday at what, like 5:30 in the morning?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So we're here tonight and Obsidian Fire is here. Yay.
Finally.
Yay. We're going to talk about death tonight.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about death. Yeah, we were singing it.
Might want to blame me on this one.
Hey, everybody. We have a nice group of people already with us tonight in chat. Hey, it is time, Malachi. Hey, everyone. I love that name, Malachi. Malachi McKnight. I love it. Hey, James. Hi, James. Hey, Johnny. I know there's other people. Amelia. Hello, Amelia. Who else?
Shadow Sun.
Shadow Sun? Oh, yep, there she is. Hey, Shadow Sun. Hey, everyone. And I know there's people that didn't say hello in chat. I can see the numbers. So I know there's other people. So hello, all of you who are too shy to say hello in chat. So we are talking about death tonight. So I kind of just wanted to just explore the topic from a witch's perspective, because I know a lot of us may have been brought up in a different religion or spiritual path. And as much as we are looking to, I guess, be open-minded or have different perspectives about death in general, reincarnation and all that, at least I know for me, growing up Christian, there is this sort of battle that I go through, internally when faced with death of a loved one, and what that really means, and my responses to that, and trying to sort of reconcile it with my beliefs as a witch about death and what I know and what I've experienced. And at least for me, there's this internal battle. Do you experience anything like that, Obsidian, yourself?
Yeah, kind of. Not really a battle, but more questioning.
Yeah.
Trying to sort of what's from the Christianity and all that is, the prominent religion in France, and what is from my beliefs and what is from what I sense, because sometimes I do sense something who do not belong to my beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
and so this is difficult to wrap my head around. So not really a battle, but questions. A lot of questions.
Yeah, maybe that's the better. Well, I don't know. So the reason why I come up with this is because come December every year, well, actually, it starts really in October. September, October, November, December are really great months for me, but also very difficult months for me.
Same for me.
I know many of you who have been following me for years, who have watched my videos, who follow me on Facebook, know that, like, my dearest friend that I met when I was 13 died in 2011. And she was more of a sister to me than a friend. I mean, we had a relationship that spanned 30 something years. And when she died from breast cancer or complications from breast cancer or whatever. It was difficult, number one, because she was my age. So that is a real sort of eye-opener. She wasn't older than me. She wasn't like a grandparent. She was someone who is actually a year younger or a couple of months younger than me.
It remembers our own mortality. It's always
exactly. So being faced with the loss of someone that I could no longer physically spend time with, could no longer hug or just, physically be with. And then the idea that she was my age and being faced with my own mortality. And then the absence as the years go by. Her birthday's in December. She died in November, and October being Samhain always brings up, there are other instances in life that I experienced that bring her up, or the loss of her very poignantly. But trying to reconcile that, like grieving her loss, but then knowing that she's really not gone.
Yes.
And then sort of
Mm-hmm.
the questioning, then if I know she's really not gone, then why do I mourn her loss?
Yeah. Why
And how
am
difficult
I
that is.
I know she's not. She doesn't disappear. She hasn't disappeared. Yeah, I know. I understand that. And I
So
think, most of us do go
so how
through.
do we cope with that? That's what I'd like to kind of, and even we can even say, because then the instance of alchemy,
Yeah.
my cat, which I know you can be with that, missing their physical presence, but knowing that they're still around
And feeling them and
and
hearing
feeling that
them
and seeing them
and seeing them.
even. But still grieving the physical presence not being there. It's and I beat myself up over this sometimes. Like I'll be like, Cricket Song, come on, Erin's not gone or Alchemy's not gone. Why are you so upset? Well, because I'm human. Yeah, but come on now. There's so much more than just what we, experience, and sort of trying to get through that grieving process, but still. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
What
It's it's difficult. It's difficult. And I bet it's difficult for most of us, I suppose.
right, but how do we make it easier for ourselves?
Well, for me, it's trying to get out of the too emotional process when I can, which is not always doable. It depends on how I feel when I get up in the morning, but some days it's easier than others. And when it's easier, I try to kind of separate, clearly separate, draw a line between what's about my grieving and what's about the truth for me, my own, around my beliefs. I mean, and I really, really focus on the bright side. On the bright side, the person, the individual that I missed isn't gone. It's just that I cannot reach them easily now. And when it's too painful, I have to admit that sometimes the easiest way for me to cope with it is to remind myself that one day it's gonna be my turn to cross over. And then I will be reunited, because I do believe that I will be, with the one I love, and that have and that I cannot reach for now. So for me, the easiest way is remind myself it's just temporary. It's just a short period of time, because our lives are so short that it gonna pass like this. So it helps me. It may sound weird, I know, but it's my way to help. Reminds me it's just for a period of time.
Mm,
And then I'm gonna cross over too.
right, right. Yeah, it's just, yeah. I know what you're saying, and I guess I've done that, but I agree. I believe exactly, the things that you say too. That, there is something after. I know there is something after.
I think, yeah, in our position, we do know there is something. What it
Mm,
is, we do not. I mean, at least for me, I do not. And I won't pretend that I know anything.
mhm.
In my own reality, I can tell I have experienced some different things, but this is me. And
Right,
this is, I perceive the bullshit. This is not the, I'm not any gospel. So
right, right, right,
any truth or anything like that. But for me, I know that there is something after. What it is, I'm not sure at all. But there is something.
right, right.
And
Um,
it helps
yeah,
for
I
me.
just, right, right. Um, I guess
This is
it's just, when when I personally am in that moment where, it's not such an easy day, or something really reminded me, and the sorrow is overwhelming and the grief is still there 7 years, 8 years later, it's still there.
yeah,
It's really difficult to sort of maneuver through that. Being brought up Christian, I don't believe in hell. I don't believe in the Christian heaven either. Um,
me neither.
but there is still like this, I don't know. I guess it's the whole idea that I know, and I've seen things, and I've had experiences with those who have died, including Erin. But I guess I just can't fathom why I am so upset when I know she's really not completely gone. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. And I think, and I can rely, and I think most of us can, because for now, we are incarnated in this realm. This is our actual reality, and we are limited by our five senses, you know. So when someone left this realm, this is painful because we cannot, and we do need, but we cannot touch anymore. This is, I think, the most important thing in the missing process. We cannot reach physically because look, we can sense sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
we can hear sometimes, even someone who has passed away. We can see sometimes. So, what is missing there? The touch.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is what we cannot grab, reminds us that this is not the same realm, the same reality that we are on. And this is digging like a breach. And it's very difficult to cross over this one,
Mm-hmm.
to not be able to get the comfort from the touch
Mm-hmm.
part. And I think this is what is the most difficult. Not, we know that this is over. For this life, this is over. There is no more um, possibility of hugging and anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is hard, I think.
I wonder, I mean, that reminds me of, I don't know if you're familiar with the love language, the 5 love languages, how people express their feelings of love through, words, deeds, touch, um, words, gifts, words, deeds, touch, gifts. Maybe it's 4. Maybe it's the 4 love languages. And you take this test and you find out which one you are and which one other people are. So then you know how they're showing their affection for
Mhm.
you, their love for you, because not everybody is huggy, touchy kind of
No.
people, right? But that doesn't mean that they don't love you and they don't express their love for you in that way. I know for me, when I took that, I am a touch person. So I wonder if other people who experience a loss of a loved one who may not be a touch person, but may show their love in service, in service to other people, if they still feel it as the same, experience it as the same as someone who is a touch person. I wonder. Or maybe if words were my thing, and my experiences with those who have passed, Erin specifically, if I am still able to speak with her, if maybe I wouldn't feel it so profoundly either. I wonder.
It's possible. I can't respond to that. We would need to have someone to share his or her experience on this point to know how it can go. But
have you taken that test? Do you know which you are?
no, I didn't.
I'll have to find the link and share it with you.
Yeah, I bet I'm gonna be on the touchy side too.
I wondered. Because in that test, my husband is service, doing things is how he shows it, and my daughter is gifts, and I can't. I think my son was the words, which is interesting. But anyway, that's not about death, but that's just a side thing. I wanted to some people were making comments in the chat about death. So let me show this one. So, do you believe people can die angry, and is there any truth to poltergeists? And I think Amelia is asking, do people who die angry turn, or are they what
is there a chance that it turns into some kind of poltergeist? Okay, so for me, it's a matter of how we do understand the word poltergeist. For me, the way I do understand that is, let's say, a phenomenon where objects are moving by itself, or sound can be heard with no physical explanation. But for me, most of the time, a poltergeist is not any type of ghost. It's often connected to one physical agent, one or maybe several, but most of the time it's one individual who goes through a difficult moment in one's life and has some abilities. And it's the way that this person, anger or sadness or whatever you want, is expressing. So for me, this has nothing to do with an angry ghost.
Yeah, I agree. I think also, I mean, I don't think it's an angry ghost, but I also think sometimes poltergeists can be an imprint in a place. So if that type of person who is dealing with some sort of an emotional situation, who had an ability, I agree, it's tied to some sort of energetic ability that they may be totally unaware of, imprints somewhere. Yeah, and it imprints in a house or on an object. It's almost like I would liken it to, when we curse an object. Yeah. It's very similar to that. Now, sometimes I think people think it's dead people because that person is no longer living, but it's not them. It's the imprint of their energy that they left in that place or in that object that is in that place.
It's like a voice recorder. I mean,
yes,
record something on a voice recorder. Yes. Anyone can play it back, but it won't be you. It won't be even intelligent. It's gonna just be a replay. So it's the same thing. When there is too much anything, too much anger, too much sadness, too much bitterness, too much whatever you want, when there is too much, it can be absorbed by the place the person is in. And even if this person is removed, the imprint gonna stay, the record gonna stay there. So yes, it's also a possibility, but I suppose it's less. We see that less often than we see poltergeist phenomenon with a live agent. The replay with moving objects, it's more like residual haunting, if I may say.
Yeah. I mean, I know everybody in the chat, Shadow was suggesting, that poltergeist is German, it means angry ghost. And Flory Mel says, but poltergeist is defined as a ghost or supernatural entity manifesting physical disturbances. I understand that's the definition. I totally understand that that's the definition, but I honestly believe that a lot of the things that people label as poltergeists are really not poltergeists. I think, and it could just be misuse of the word because they're not really sure what is causing it. So they're just saying it's an angry spirit. But honestly, go ahead.
Yeah, basically it's the reason why they called it that, because they didn't know. But of course we cannot prove anything, so we still do not know. But with the time and with more and more people going into paranormal research, it came out that most of the time there were someone, mostly a young person between like 13 and 18 or 20 years of age, that was in a difficult place emotionally and all, and that the phenomenon were revolving around this person.
Right.
And then the expression poltergeist agent came out, but we did kept the poltergeist thing in the beginning, so it's misleading. But
Yeah. And someone else, I mean, there's Shadow says the German word is actually an interpretation. Thank you, Shadow. And Flory Mel said they could be anything, not just poltergeist. They could be a demon or a fairy. And which is what I was going to say, that I'm not saying that there are not dead spirits, ghosts, that are all happy. I'm not saying that. Because I do believe that we sort of go through a transition period when we die. And if we die with a lot of regrets and a lot of anger and unfinished business and maybe emotional trauma, maybe we were emotionally traumatized dealing with shit, and then we died and we're still dealing with shit through the transition, which can be expressed in anger. I definitely have seen those sorts of things happen. But I think there is less of that. So, and more things that are labeled poltergeists than that. And I do think demons and fae, things that fae do are not always, Tinkerbell fae stuff, those kind of things could be misinterpreted as poltergeists.
Yeah, I agree. But I was going on the understanding of the word poltergeist. But about the question itself, do I believe that people can turn into angry ghosts? To sum up, yeah, I do believe this is possible, and I've seen that happening, so I know it's possible.
Yeah, it definitely is possible.
Understanding of things, again, not
I
in
want to go back. Someone had a question about spirit boards. When people fear spirit boards, I wonder if unhappy souls looking for revenge are people to attach to. When people fear spirit boards, I wonder.
Amelia, do you mean that you wonder about when people use spirit board? Is there really some kind of restless spirits who wait to that to jump on people or to attach itself to people.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Is this, yeah? Is this the
Like
kind of
the
portal
people,
opening that goes with it?
like people who use spirit boards who are then afraid of it. They're afraid that there is an unhappy soul looking for revenge, or there are unhappy people, ghosts, these angry ghosts that then use that portal to sort of come through and then maybe are attached to the people using the board. I think maybe that might, Amelia, you want to clarify for us and we can talk about that?
She said yes, obsidian.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, start with this one. I've started with the previous one, so cricket. No, you don't?
I'm sorry. I was watching there are other questions. So what did you ask me?
What do you think about that? About
Well,
what?
I definitely think spirit boards are a portal. Okay. Just like tarot cards are a portal and scrying mirrors are a portal, they're a tool. And when we use this tool, it's like opening a channel, like a cell phone when we dial someone's number. So I think anything can come through that channel. Anything can come through that tool. A happy spirit, an unhappy spirit. It could be a demon. It could be an angel. It could be a spirit guide. It could be a alien from another dimension. That's, I mean, depending on what you're tapping into, what vibrational frequency you're tapping into. So what I usually suggest, and when I use a spirit board, I want to make sure I'm in a pretty stable frame of mind. You know, I don't want to be in a low vibrational frequency myself. I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be, personally, I generally don't use any of those tools if I'm sick, because the lower my vibrational frequency I'm going to attract. It's like being an antenna. So I'm going to easily attract those energies that are, you know, sort of vibrating on the same frequency as I am. So if I am sick and depressed and stressed out and low energy, and I'm trying to reach my primary spirit guide, chances are I'm going to have a hard time getting a hold of her, you know, kind of thing. Chances are I'm going to align with a lower vibrational, denser spiritual entity, which is probably one going through their transition and they're going through and working through their shit. So I don't want to put myself there. I don't. So, I mean, I don't, and yes, I believe that if you open the door, you can create a relationship or a bond with a spiritual entity that comes through. You can definitely, it's just like a relationship with a living person. We talk about it as witches, cultivating a relationship with the gods, cultivating a relationship with the ancestors, with your beloved dead. You don't have to be, you know, blood linked to a spiritual entity to create that bond. You can, but you don't have to. So if I'm in this depressed, sick, stressed out state of mind, and I'm using my spirit board and I'm contacting an entity named Beelzebub, and I then next time I'm in that same thing and I contact that same entity, then there's going to be a bond.
Yeah.
So there is an attachment. There is an energetic attachment between me and Beelzebub. And maybe it's not a healthy attachment. So I think those things can happen, but it's not because the board, it's because I used a tool. It's because of me and that other entity. It's not the board. The board is just the cell phone.
Yes. It's your choice. Either you want to keep your front door open, or if you take some precaution and locked it.
Exactly. Like the cell phone. Do you have a password or face recognition on your cell phone, or do you leave it open for anybody and anybody to pick it up and use it?
Yeah. That's always the question you have to ask yourself and to respond. You cannot just let that sit there and, oh yeah, don't mind it. No, you need to answer that and take whatever precaution you want to, you feel you have to surround yourself with protection. If you feel that, because sometimes I do use my tools in a difficult state of mind, when I'm in a difficult state of mind, and when I do that, I make sure I did it in a controlled environment, in a safe place, and of course, I craft one for myself before starting using any kind of tools, because if I didn't, yeah, maybe I could attract something aligned with my energy. So yeah, no, it's possible to attract, but it's not because of the tool.
Yeah,
It's
it's
because
not.
of our spiritual and emotional place.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose, I mean, you can look at it in a way that if you are an individual who doesn't practice mediumship with just themselves and they are working with tools only. And so if you are concerned about uh, being sort of having that bond or attachment, or I can definitely see where an individual might then blame the board for it, because if they didn't have the board, then they wouldn't have made contact because
Mhm.
they're not practicing mediumship. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
So it I can see how that sort of idea comes about. Individuals who wouldn't normally practice mediumship only do so with a board.
Mhm.
And then they blame the board for the results. And it's the board that brought, evil into their house. When in
Mhm.
reality, that person might have done it without the board
Mhm.
because they might have a natural tendency, but they didn't explore it
No. Yeah.
because they didn't think to do that.
No.
Um, yeah.
And the board is a very popular tool,
Yeah.
made popular by Hollywood, most of it.
Hmm.
This is not, this is, yeah, this is like the go-to tool if you want to spook yourself or any kind of shit kids do. It's your own risks, honestly. It's about your emotional state, but it's also about your lack of
Yeah.
experience. When okay, let's put it that way. If you do believe that there is some kind of entity, whatever they are, that won't wish you good, then you should take the board, or any other tool for that matter, with respect, and start by protecting yourself from any interference, from anything you don't want into your life, your space, your vibes, your whatever. So it's kind of basics there. Protect yourself and be sure to be in a good state. And that's it.
Yeah. I
Don't
agree.
Yeah.
Witch Moon Angie, excuse me, Homan said, should always shield and ground. That's good. General fear of spirit boards. People are generally,
Yeah.
she made one, Amelia made one, and hasn't had any negative results. That's
Same
wonderful.
here. Mm.
Me too. Yeah, don't blame the hammer for hurting the thumb. Blame the user of the tool. Exactly.
Yeah.
Flory Mel said, being afraid is already putting people in danger because fear is a low frequency to be at. However,
Yeah.
having no caution is also reckless. There has to be a balance.
Absolutely
Exactly.
agree.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that whole idea that's not only true for the board, but any
Anything.
sort of action that you do. If you think about it, if you're afraid of casting a spell, if you're afraid
Yeah.
of failing in casting a spell, then the spell is not going to manifest because you're already putting up resistance. So if
Or
you're afraid of
gonna
that,
fire back at you.
right, right.
Can
So if
go right back at you if
that's
you are
right.
that afraid.
So if you're afraid of using the board, you're already putting up a resistance. You're already bringing yourself, like Amelia suggested, not Amelia, Flori Mel suggested, you're already bringing your vibrational frequency, down. It's a lower vibration, fear. But yes, you should be cautious. And I think there's a difference between being cautious and being afraid. If you're just afraid because people have told you the spirit board is from the devil, it only contacts demons, and I don't know, whatever else they say, you're already thinking that. You're already sort of assuming that you're going to have a negative experience. I would suggest that if you're afraid of it, you just don't use it. You find a different tool that you're not afraid of.
Educate yourself. If you are in fear, just put aside any Hollywood kind of knowledge and the rules of the board shit. Put that aside. This is just teenagers' fantasies. You can trash that away. That it's nonsense. Clear the place and start by going to people who actually use the board. Adults, people who don't do that for views on YouTube. And then you're going to have some kind of knowledge coming out of that. Experiments and experiences and testimony about that. You're going to find some books too. You're going to find some information here and there. Gather that, and slowly you're going to realize that this is not so dangerous. This is not more than oracle or tarot cards or
Right.
anything, basically anything.
Right.
And you're going to beat the fear. And when this is done, then you can use it.
I agree. Understanding that it's a tool. I mean, I think the only rule I ever have told anybody is whenever you're communicating with spirit, do so with respect. It's just like another person. I mean, I wouldn't first meet someone and start swearing at them. And I wouldn't meet someone for the first time and start making demands of them either. I wouldn't.
I agree.
But
It's just
the thing that I do say is remember that this is the physical realm and you are a physical being. So you as a physical realm, being on a physical realm, have the most control over what's happening in the physical realm. So you have more control than a non-physical entity does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in that sense, if you are experiencing something that is uncomfortable, you are the one in control, and it's important for you to maintain control, because if you give up control, then you're going to experience poltergeists. Right?
That's true. Of course, there is some case where this going out of control, and even with someone experienced, yes, that does exist, but it's a really small rate of the war. So
right. And I would suggest in those instances, you want to look at the situation. Why did that experienced person lose control of the situation? And I'm sure it's because they became afraid of something, their own fear, a situation within them. They brought something into their experience that they did it, whether they were aware of what was happening or not. Yeah.
It can be, it's psychology.
It is, definitely.
Basically, we aren't always able to explain to someone else why we do react the way we did. why we do choose the words we have chosen in a specific um, discussion or whatever. We are not always able to explain it because we are not aware of the exact process of our thoughts. That's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing here, because I've seen in the chat a question: how is giving up control defined? How does it manifest? Well, as I was saying, it's gonna be different for everyone because it's about psychology, and we are not most of the time able to explain clearly and sit at the table. Oh, I do feel this way because blah, 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 blah. No, most of the time we do not know. We just hurt or we are just angry, and it takes some time for us to deconstruct the process of our own thoughts to understand. So how giving up control is defined? Well, it can be defined in very, very different ways and many ways. It depends on how do the person feels and goes, and how this person approach the board or any other tool. But I would say most of the time it's fear. At least in the cases I've seen, I don't know for you, Cricket, but most of the time they they give up control because they fear whatever they are entering in contact with, and they do believe in some kind of demon. And so with the demon image came the overpower feeling and them wanting to do harm feeling. And so you place yourself not only in fear, but in you are vulnerable. Is it okay, this word? You
Mm-hmm.
know, in a place where you believe you can do nothing to
Mm-hmm.
protect yourself. And this is a very bad place to be, because then every door and windows are open to anything. So the fear, I would say fear is the worst of it all. It opens every door. I don't know if you
Yeah, I was also going to say it's when, I mean, how does giving up control manifest? So here's an example. If I'm sitting at the spirit board and I'm using it to communicate with Erin, say I want to communicate with what I believe is Erin, the entity I believe to be Erin. And I then give up control of the board. Instead of me asking the questions and getting the answers, I then say, just like if you're channeling, whatever, do with me whatever you wish. When I give up control or when I start
to
reacting to what is being told to me instead of me asking the questions, I allow the spirit to ask questions of me. That's like the power shift. That's what you don't want to experience. There's a difference if you're a Wiccan and you're practicing drawing down the moon. You are summoning and you are invoking the entity. You are allowing the entity to come in because you are allowing that to happen. You are saying yes. That is different than just sort of opening the door and letting anybody walk through the door. When I call a specific person or when I'm just opening the line, one is in control. I am calling Erin, or I'm just sitting at the board saying, whatever, I want to talk to whatever's here. I mean, the chances of you not being in control in that situation is greater than if you are specifically looking to communicate with an entity. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, totally. But as usual, we are all different. So all of this is just general tidbits to understand. But
Yeah, definitely.
this is as usual, not any gospel. You have to
No,
find your
it's not.
answer.
Exactly. I mean, and I guess there are situations where you can, if I would say if you were experienced Then there are situations where you might just want to look for answers from spirit, when you're trying to make contact with your spirit guide and you're asking, but see, even then, I am asking the one who can help me to come forward. I'm still sort of labeling what I'm looking for. It's a
Always.
difference between sending out an intention and just allowing other people to tell you what your intention is.
Absolutely.
Fear is definitely a motivator that creates a lack of control, wanting to please others, which doesn't only have to be humans. You can
Mhm.
want to please a spiritual entity, and that is based in fear of not being loved. So I guess fear is really the basis of everything. Fear of blank, fear of lack of acceptance, fear of abandonment, fear of no love, fear of no
Fear
power.
of everything, yeah. Yeah. And another thing that I wasn't thinking too, but you've just remind me of it, and this is, at least to me, this is also an important point. You don't want to start any kind of conversation with any kind of tool without specifically telling who you do allow to enter your space.
Mm,
You just, in my opinion, you do not want to start any kind of seance with, is there anyone who wants to speak with me? No. No, if you do that, so then yeah, maybe anyone gonna come, and this anyone is not something you want to mess with.
right.
So do not, in my opinion, start any kind of seance this way. You state clearly that only positive energy are allowed into your space. Only the one who wants you good.
Mm.
And that's it. Anything else, go fuck yourself. State it clearly, stand your ground. Do not allow anything, just anyone to enter. This is a mistake in my own opinion.
I agree, especially if you're not experienced,
Yeah.
and that's the whole idea of you can be humble and still in control. You know, control doesn't always have to look like pride. Control doesn't always have to look like arrogance. Control doesn't always have to look like a warrior. You can be a humble person, a
In
timid
control.
person, and still be in control of the situation. And,
Absolutely.
I think it all comes down to understanding your own power, understanding your own energy, understanding the way your energy interacts with whatever, the physical realm, other people, and the spirit realm, and understanding how to maintain that power and the control of your energy. That's going to help you create shields. It's going to help you to be grounded. That's going to help you to discern what energies are coming into your space that are not for your good. It all
Absolutely.
starts with it always, how comes it always comes back down to the witch's pyramid, to
Because
know. It
it's a
always
middle.
comes back to know. It
It's a
always
middle.
does.
Yeah, because it's true. Okay, so Florimel was saying,
So you're assuming you're
yeah,
communicating with someone positive when they are actually negative makes one vulnerable. Likewise, when one assumes all is negative and the fear sets in and we come pray. Exactly.
yes, yes, and the easiest way to avoid that is starting by having no fear of the tool. So be educated on the subject you wanna touch, on the tool you wanna use. Okay, and second, stand your ground. You
Mhm,
just do not open your door to anyone.
mhm.
You just state who you want to talk with, and this is gonna be all right if you do that. This is gonna be okay.
I agree.
Believe in you. If you do not believe that you are able to set this kind of protection, then you won't be able to. Because deep down, you do not believe that you can do, so you do not. This is the most difficult part, I think, in the art, in the craft. Believe in what you do.
Mm-hmm.
This is, for me, the very first difficulty, the biggest one. Do not doubt. If you do doubt, don't do it.
Right. I agree. And I guess, I mean, it makes sense why this conversation went from death to Ouija boards. It totally makes sense because a lot of
Yes,
people
because
do,
it's always like this.
yeah, they use spirit boards or Ouija boards to communicate with those who have passed on. I totally get that. I totally get that.
It's about, I
Um,
think, the difficulties. We do have to accept that someone crossed over and we want to reach with this someone
mhm.
anyway. As witches, we do have plenty of to do so. The question is, why do we feel the need to?
Well, I mean, I suppose sometimes, I mean, those who have crossed over or who have transitioned help us and guide us in the physical realm from their perspective in the spiritual realm. I mean, for a while, when I was, Erin died around the time I was being Reiki attuned. So I was being, the 3 levels of getting Reiki, and she was there helping with the attunement for me.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
as
there is
of
sort of
case.
purposes, for that. Although, interesting enough, I never used a spirit board to communicate with her.
See?
Um,
Mm.
because there were other ways that she communicated with me, and I didn't need a spirit board. So,
Yeah, I do. Yeah, most of the time when I do use the spirit board, it's not to reach any beloved dead. I never did that. They came, they came sometimes, but I
yeah,
did not reach to them. Why?
yeah,
Because for me, I do believe that they got their path to go through. They have their own things to do, and I don't want to disturb them in any way by clinging, or anything like this. I don't want that to happen, so I don't call on anyone. If they want, they come to me. This is not the same approach.
so with that, it's interesting that you brought that up because that's another thing that I've wrestled, kind of contemplated with the idea. Okay, so these are the assumptions, right? That as witches or as anyone,
Practitioner.
anything we focus our energy on, anything that we focus on, we will attract in our life. So I truly believe that, whether you
Yeah,
believe in magic or not, if
yeah,
a person, it's sort of that self-fulfilling prophecy that people talk about, whether you're magical or not.
I
If you think I'm
totally
going to fail, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail, I'm
got
going to
about.
fail, you're going to fail. If all of a sudden you buy a red car, a brand new red car, you start seeing a whole bunch of red cars like, oh my God, everybody has a red car. It's just because you are more focused on your wonderful new red car that it seems like everybody has red cars, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So, with that idea, if we are grieving someone who recently died and we are focused on them and their energy, their spirit, their being, are we then sort of tying them here by focusing all this, not only mental thoughts, but if we're distraught by their death, then we're adding an emotional. Isn't that magic? I mean,
yes,
aren't we creating this magical bond between us and them? And are we then going to keep them from going through their transition? And then if we use the spirit board or any other form of communication, is that only adding to them staying attached to the physical when they are looking to go through transition? See, I
And
don't know how I feel about that, because I can tell you in my grieving process, there were days that I'm like, no, and that's all I could think about,
yeah.
and then I felt bad because I felt like I was tying her here when she no longer wanted to be here.
I do believe so. I do believe that all you said previously is true. I do believe that. But this is not just about us, it's about them.
Mm-hmm.
And if they got a clear mind, if I can
Mm-hmm.
express that in this way, if they got a clear mind and if they are in peace enough, this is not gonna keep them tied here because they are above that. It's about an kind of an echo. If they are in distress, your distress gonna amplify there and just
Gotcha.
gonna be, you know,
I see that. Yeah, I see what you mean. So
bouncing.
ideally, if someone, okay, so that, look at, my mind's going 10 miles a minute now. So if we say that someone was ready to say they didn't die in any trauma, we're going to say this wasn't a traumatic thing. And I'll use myself as an example. Erin died. She had breast cancer. She knew she was dying. I had the opportunity to spend time with her when she was still conscious. She was aware death was coming. She was ready for it. Everything had been taken care of. She was just, waiting. So she knew and she was prepared. So in that sense, there was no trauma. So if she had if she was ready, if she was sort of worked through all her shit while she was still alive, at her time of death, she was already in a higher vibrational frequency, which I've heard happen with people too,
Yes.
where they seem to already be dead before they were dead. They were already disconnecting to their physical body. Then it wouldn't matter how much I or anybody else were mourning and wishing she was still here, because she was already ascending. She was already going through it. Whereas if someone was not and did not want to die and had unfinished business and was still tied to their physical things, maybe even, then they would have difficulty transitioning. And my grief and my sorrow and other people's grief and sorrow might just sort of trap them in a vibration closer to physicality.
This is what I believe.
Yeah, it doesn't make it truth, but this is
No,
and
it
this
doesn't
makes
make it
sense to
true.
me, though.
This is what I believe. So it doesn't, in my understanding, the grief won't necessarily trap someone, but it's gonna wait on someone more heavily. And if this person has already trouble to ascend, this will just add trouble for them to ascend.
And this
Not
sort of brings
necessarily.
up the idea of earthbound spirits too, sort of the
Yes,
concept of that.
yeah. For me, it's just tight. The two concepts are
I
really
think
close.
some cultures do. I think I remember reading, I'm not sure which culture it is, but I remember reading somewhere that there was some culture or some religion or some sort of spiritual path that did believe the mourning did keep them closer to earth, and which is why they do celebrations, because celebrations are higher vibrations. It's joyful, and it's not the heavy sorrow that would tie them here.
Absolutely. And I just think when we are able to cope with the loss of a close one in a more joyful manner, more celebrating the
Mm-hmm.
life he has than mourning the death of it
Mm-hmm.
of this person. I'd say I'd rather do the first one than the second.
Yeah. But we mourn anyway, too.
Yes, we do. But we can most of the time we can mourn in a more in a lighter way.
Yeah, I don't know. I shed so many tears and had such grief. It was, I don't know.
Yes, of course. I've lost both of my parents
Yeah.
20 years ago, so I was really young still.
Yeah.
It was tough. I can tell it was tough, and it still is sometimes, because
Yeah.
obviously it's gonna be tough all my life, because this is this realm, and they're always. I will always miss them in some point, but um, because I do believe all that we just discussed,
Mm-hmm.
don't wanna wait on them. I don't want to bound them. I don't want to prevent them. So when I'm at a loss, I know they can reach me if they want. I know they
Mm-hmm.
can send me energies or love or help if they want to. So they can reach me in this way. Me to prevent them to be tied, and to prevent me to remain trapped in sorrow. I prefer focusing on what they are experiencing right now. Means that I don't want to focus my mind on the death part. Death is just a transition. I'm trying to focus when the case is when I have to cope with the loss of someone. I try to focus on where are they now, what they are going to do after that. Um, did they ascend? And I try to send thoughts and help for them to continue their path. And I'm focusing on the path, which means they are still alive. You know, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, this is, it's not like negate the death. It's just a transition. It's just putting it in place. That just changed realm.
Mm-hmm.
Doing things this way for me uh, soothes the sorrow of the loss. It helps me
Yeah.
see things in a more broad view, and this diminish the grief. It's not over. They are doing their things. Do I want to prevent them to do that? No. So I'm trying to send, whatever energy to help them to go on, and putting aside my own difficult moment. And when I do cry and all, I'm trying kind of trap myself into a bubble to prevent this energy to hurt the one who passes away.
And that makes sense. That sounds like a good thing to practice.
Mm.
But we're out of time now. It's past 9:30. Now it's 9:34. So we will be back.
Yeah,
We haven't quite scheduled the time. We're going to meet now and
yeah.
figure out what 2 weeks we'll do for January. So we'll have 2 shows in January. So keep your eyes peeled on my Facebook page. If you haven't joined the Facebook group, Deux, Wytches, I encourage you to do so. We have lots of stuff that goes on in that group, weekly prompts, contemplations, posts, and all that fun stuff. So go check that out. Thank you all for joining us here this evening, and we shall see you soon.
Soon we
Soon.
can tell
Not
exactly.
sure when, but it will be soon. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening. Mwah.
Bye.
Blessed be.
Till next time.